ahead and call this meeting to order at 5:32. Let's jump right into roll call. Eric.
Here.
Joey.
Here.
Tanya.
Here.
Edgar.
Here.
Dane.
Here.
I'm here. Alex is sick. Dr. Kennedy.
Here.
Lacey.
Here.
Kane. Demetria.
Here.
Greg is also sick or out. Vinay.
Here.
Excused. Thank you. Patrick is also excused. Brandon.
Here.
There we go. All right, so if everyone can look over tonight's agenda. Eric.
Do we need to make a,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to move up a supplemental funding request 1923, Weber State Case Competition for Westside students, to before old business.
Second.
Okay, so Eric moves, Kane seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving funding request 1923 to before old business? All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstaining? And the motion passes.
Okay, thanks, Pete.
All right, so if everyone could look over the minutes from last week.
That was just moving the agenda.
Oh yeah. Any other, thank you. Any other comments on tonight's agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Eric moves, Brandon seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving tonight's agenda? All those opposed? Any abstaining? That the motion passes. All right, if everyone could look over the minutes from last meeting. Eric?
I move to approve the minutes from the last meeting on January 9th, 2019.
Eric moves, Kane seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those against? Any discussion or abstaining? All right, seeing none, the motion passes. Now we'll move into reports. I don't have any tonight.
The only ones I have, again, just as a reminder, tonight is our first set of program reviews. And so Jeff Rosenberry will be up here doing two of them, and it'll be a little bit different because I think he's going to do them potentially together with being ASCWU. Just to remind everyone, the point of these is really to kind of have him give us an overview of what that program is. It's a base-funded S&A area, so he's going to give an overview of that and allow us to ask any questions we have about the budget, about the program itself, just so we're familiar with it. There's not anything to approve with it. It's really just a report back, so we're aware of what's going on with that. The other part is just as an update. We did get word that the video recording from the November 28th meeting is not able to be retrieved. So they're working on refunding us for that, but that won't be available online. We still have the minutes, but the video itself won't be available. And then I believe we still have one student position open. So if you know of anyone who's interested, please encourage them to apply on the website.
All right, with that, we'll move into the first call for public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll move right into supplemental funding request 1923, the Weber State Case Competition. So you have 10 minutes to present and 10 minutes for questions.
So that's you, Devin.
Okay, Johnny, were you going to go first? Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Pretty hard to hear but hopefully you guys can hear from me. The point of this whole case competition in general, it provides more a valuable asset for students and the school as well. And for us students, it helps us apply and pretty much our knowledge to a real company situation. It gives us a really good idea of realistic information of what it's like in the real world. And with that being said, they also give us a feedback of the kind of performance that that we need to make sure that we able to apply our knowledge very well. So speaking with the class knowledge, we tend to remember things when we use it to practice. So by applying the kind of class knowledge that we have through our studies, it kind of reinforces us about what we learn in class. So overall, it makes us pretty much a overall better students in general. And going there, it provides a real sense of what it's like to be under pressure and to apply this kind of critical analysis. So to solve this kind of situation, especially in a time-limited scenario in front of judges, by thinking critically and clearly, it will actually make us a better decision makers overall. So to feel that being respected as a decision maker, you're also able to help us become a better, not just students, but in the profession, but in our careers as well. And being in a presentation like that also gives us a chance to be spoken in our public speaking skills, and to also learn how to persuade our ideas and to expand this kind of knowledge and our own confidence as well. Overall, this is a great opportunity for teamwork, especially to work with others in the same kind of mind and common goal. It's very encouraging with one another. It serves a very good confidence boosting. And teamwork is very vital, especially after our college years. It serves a big asset for a lot of employers, and it's one of those soft skills actually employers actually look for too as well. But overall, we want to go in there with not just for our own personal needs to be a better person, a better student, work ourselves in our career, but it's actually representing the whole school itself. So we definitely have a lot of pride in this. We're not really new. We've done case competition before, as well as like bowling. Actually held throughout all campuses. But this case competition is a little different. It's actually out of state. So it's not just kind of building the name locally, but we want to also represent the school nationally if we can, especially there's a lot of bigger companies, big companies outside the state as well. So we want to have this opportunity to represent the school, especially here in the West Side Centers, which is very limited in resources compared to spread itself. So to hear this kind of opportunity, especially from Carlos Smith, the Department Chair of Finance and Supply Chain, and Dr. Kun Lau, they've been doing for this for past quite some years already. So just hearing this, like how they do this, and from the past students that came across that already graduated, is something that we want to feel that we want to carry on this tradition. And Devin, do you have anything more you want to add to say?
Yeah, so mostly Johnny talked about what it's going to do for us as students. I kind of want to talk about what it's going to do for the school as a whole, not just the College of Business, but Central Washington University. And one thing that it's going to allow schools to do is basically advertising. First on a general advertising for the university, as it's a smaller school, it's maybe not as well known nationally like Johnny was talking about. So the opportunity to get out in another region in the U.S. and get our name out there is really good, but it also the ability to advertise the school of business. If we go there and we do well and we compete, we can raise the the knowledge of our school of business. And one thing that the Central Washington has committed to is diversity, and we have a very diverse team, not just like ethnically or anything like that, but we have a diverse gender as well as age. We have 17 members who have been actually in the workforce for 20 plus years, and some who are rather new into the workforce, and some who are just students. So we have a lot of diversity, and the school prides itself on that diversity. So it'd be good to be able to get out there and say, hey, we actually put that into our everyday activities here at the school. I'll say another thing would be the tradition, again, that Johnny spoke about a little bit. The school participates every year in voting, and we have participated in Weber before, but it'd be nice to build another tradition and another opportunity for students to go out, and possibly future students can look setting. And the more types of participation we're able to do in events like this shows that we stand by that commitment. And I think finally, something like this would increase the prestige of the school. It kind of ties all those 4 points in together, and the overall level of the school will be raised every time we participate in an event, particularly an event out of state. That's pretty much it for my side of things on why we should participate. If Johnny is good for it, we can go ahead and open up the floor to some questions.
Yeah.
All right, are there any questions at this time? Brandon.
So, how many schools are competing in this competition?
So this rubber state competition is unique. It's because it's not funded by any funds whatsoever. We are aware of that. We actually, being like endemic, so we actually approach Congressman, who again is the Department Chair of Economy and Finance, and our advisor, Dr. Kumau. I believe it's only one team. I mean, if there's other teams available and there's more funds for them, great. Pretty sure Dr. Kumau might be open for that, but as far as I know, Dr. Kumau in the past years, he only pretty much goes with just one team.
Johnny, how many different schools attend this competition?
I don't know that person because I haven't been there yet. But there are, if I do kind of personally myself, there's probably at least 4, if not more. Some schools I've heard of is University of Michigan, I believe, University of Miami, BYU is going to be there. So these are great supply chain program schools, and it's going to be a big challenge for us, but we are up for that challenge. So it gives us a better good sense of ideas even from other schools to see how they come in with their knowledge as well.
Any further questions? Joey.
I guess my one question here is, I know you made note on the funding request packet that you had contacted the Westside Student Life Services for other funding. What was the outcome of that?
I'm sorry, I could barely hear you. Can you repeat that one more time?
On the funding packet, it shows that you all had contacted the Westside Student Services for funding. What was the outcome of that outreach?
So when I talked to Michelle, who is the associate director of the whole Westside Student Services, the problem with Westside is there aren't really flashing clubs. There are a few clubs out there, but there's no set club or whatsoever. Again, it's pretty limited resources here. I try to dig as much information as I can and go through any clubs that I can't find. So that's something I already did with my research and explained to Michelle. Michelle tried to understand it too, but to get that kind of feedback from her, she's like, well, if anything, I'm moving it for our own side for student services. We also try to help you guys with the companies as well. But even, we're very limited on the kind of government activities that's going on in these kinds of activities that comes going on. So that's why we don't really have no funding whatsoever. And the first step I just did was just talk to Michelle and see how this would actually approach to.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Great. Seeing none, thank you, and we'll be voting on this next week.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank
Thank you so much.
All right, now we'll move into old business, subsection A, supplemental funding requests and the voting. We'll start with request 1918, the Central Washington University PRSSA research project for $1,000. Table is open for discussion. Kane.
I don't know how, I don't know if it just got lost in my mind or somewhere along the way, but looking over the packet versus what was presented to us was significantly different. In the packet, it talks about doing a research project within their was a trip to New York. The trip to New York was included in it, but they said nothing about doing a research project. So I was just kind of confused on the whole aspect of the packet versus what was presented to us. And something else that concerned me also was, I know that they took steps to make their itinerary a little bit more full, but overall it seemed like there was a lack of structure in their visit to New York.
Demetria?
I just had similar concerns with what I saw in the presentation, was that they just went to basically a book opening is what I got from that. Not necessarily that they did, similar to what Kane said, any research project within that. And so I was wondering if they had came back possibly with anything else related that they were going to do research on here, but I didn't hear anything about that.
Eric?
My understanding from previous presentations with the academic senate is that they had done research previous to this trip, and this was, I guess, a secondary.
Culminating experience.
Yeah.
some sort?
Yeah. Last year they did something different. It wasn't a book. It was a. Yeah, I don't know. That's how they explained it to me. There was research done previous to this.
Any further discussion or a motion on the table?
Just a point of information. This is great discussion. This is also would have been a great question to ask when the group was here. And looking back at the minutes, there wasn't a question about that. So we want to be mindful. Not that it's not relevant to our discussion. It does make it difficult when they're not here to answer the question. So again, just be mindful when we have the chance with the groups here to ask those questions.
Yeah, I know that they got somebody from the Office of Undergraduate Research, so they have to present a source. So that would give you some information about the presentation.
Eric?
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the $1,000.
So Eric moves, Brandon seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of approving in the full amount? All those opposed? Any abstaining? And with that, the motion passes. We'll move right into supplemental funding request 1919, the American Marketing Association, for $35,000. The table is now open for discussion. Brandon.
Just kind of like looking at the situation we're in now, I think it's gonna be really hard for us to approve the full amount of $35,000, knowing that's for more than like a quarter of our remaining funds. The second week in the winter quarter. Second thing is that they're trying to take close to like 30 students, and they don't have any like process of who they're gonna take. They just want to take as many as they can. And with that said, I think we should probably not approve that full amount and maybe talk to them about maybe doing an application process and lowering their costs.
Just a point of information. We can choose to fund a set amount. We can't dictate to them how they're selected. They can still choose to take the full 29 people, whether we fund the full amount or not, or they can choose to take less.
Eric.
I agree with you there when they said we just want to take more people. That concerned me. I'm going to make a motion for $20,000.
Is there a second? Seeing none, we return back to the discussion. Kane?
I also had, I agree with the concerns about like having just wanting to take as many people as possible, as well as that it's kind of hard to see, because when I asked the question about like, professional development, those that aren't even in the business major, where so it didn't still make sense to me how someone from the health sciences department could be newcomers. Experience when we could allot this kind of money to a program that might specifically benefit them more in their future career. I would move to approve for $10,000.
So Ken, so Kane moves, is there a second? Demetria second. I saw her hand. Is there any discussion on the motion? Eric?
And part of it, you know, the 10,000 that you need the motion for, looking at what they have in their club account, $8,400. I think if they're wanting to bring more people, then they should spend from that account. That's just.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving $10,000? All those opposed? All those abstaining? And with that, the motion passes. Now we'll move into supplemental funding request 1920, the Santa Barbara Shootout Tournament for $5,250. Any discussion? Edgar?
I just thought it was really cool how they put a lot of effort into doing the fundraising, and they also give back to the community for community service. So I just feel like they really want to get closer to try to get more to go.
Eric?
Yeah, I agree with Edgar. They're not just fundraising for themselves. They're going out, they're helping in the community. They're trying to get the word out that this sports club exists. And they're also working with members of the community. I mean, we looked at these other pictures, they had working with youth, they were just taking the extra time out of their already busy schedules with their practices and their own, studies. So I would like to make a motion for the full amount of $5,250.
Brandon seconds on Eric's motion. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstaining? With that, the motion passes in the full amount. Finally, supplemental funding request 1921, the student facilitators for ASL Resource Center for $2,160. Is there any discussion? Eric?
I like that this is a thing, but I would just like to make the statement that it is unfortunate that it is not funded from the school and the department.
Kate?
I agree with Eric's statement as well as that, ASL is probably one of the fastest growing languages on campus that I have personally seen, and have heard that students want this kind of resource around. The department already does as much as they can to provide them those things. However, I think this is something that particularly will allow them to just boost that as far as they can.
Demetria?
I motion to allot the full amount of $2,160.
Edgar seconds on Demetria's motion. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? With that, the motion passes in the full amount. Now, Lacey, did you have
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just want to give an update. So we have $88,000 left for the rest of the year. We are booked for like at least the next couple of weeks. So I just want you guys to be aware that we're sitting on roughly $42,000 of requests today, and it is only winter quarter. So,
Great discussion though today.
I mean, all good things, not trying to hinder, so.
Eric?
Big question for you, Lacey. With that being said, do you see us needing to expand the budget in the future?
Well, I think that would be a discussion that's probably for our next meeting. But there's going to be a couple of things that Jeff is going to be talking about, a couple of things in his areas that have to do with an adjustment to base funding. And then there's the minimum wage impact that we have on the students, and as you guys know, our base funded areas have more student employees than most areas on campus. So we're gonna have a couple of hefty things that aren't necessarily, you know, what we budgeted for, but they are coming out of the same reserve that we're using. So I just want you guys to be kind of mindful, because $100,000 can be real quick. So let me know if you, well, I mean, I guess we can probably put that on next week's agenda, depending on how packed that one is maybe.
Thank you.
Kane.
I just, out of curiosity, is the $20 expended request on their actual thing? Or is-
Yeah, I need to follow up, but that's what the form said. So it's a registration cost of $20. So I trust me, we're on camera. We cannot do that.
Alright, so let's go ahead and start in the new business, subsection A, base funding program reviews. You're welcome, Jeff Rosenberg.
Yeah. I have 10 minutes for each one. I'll take 20 for each one. 5 minutes total, or? Okay, good. For those of you who haven't met, my name is Jeff Rosenberry. I serve as the Executive Director of Student Involvement, and in that role oversee various S&A funded departments like Diversity and Equity Center. Boy, it's been a long day. Leadership and Community Engagement, KCW 881 Berg, and Student Union and Activities, which is encompassing publicity and campus activities and student union operations. And then also 51% of my job is to advise student government. It takes up 90% of my time, I can assure you. And I help navigate the various ASCW budgets with the executive team in coordination with our student funds manager, Lacey Lampkins. So I'm here tonight to do program review on 2 budgets, the first being the ASCW club budget, and the second being the ASCW Legislative Affairs budget. And I'll talk a little bit about each of these for you so that you have an idea of the allocation and what that money is being used for. And we have Kane here, who serves on student government and can probably answer some questions better than I can, depends on the day. But starting with the ASCW club budget, S&A provides an annual allocation of $101,749 to clubs, and approximately $24,000 of that is student payroll, which is inclusive of an additional about $700 in benefits, and then the remaining approximately $76,000 is goods and services. And to give you an idea of what goods and services means for clubs, is that traditionally that money is split up amongst 3 quarters, approximately $25,333 per quarter that is authorized for Club Senate to utilize to support the over 100 clubs in their requests for travel to conferences, similar to S&A and programming and events and whatnot. And then the other part of that is programming out of the clubs and organizations office within ASCW. That's inclusive of things like the Cocoa and Club Fair that you saw yesterday in the CIRC, and then a club fair in fall as well. Different programs and events come out of that budget. So right now we are on target to be on budget. We had about a $3,000 carryover from last year, FY18 into FY19, and it looks like that money is planned and forecast to be spent appropriately, leaving our base allocation to start FY20. So, any questions on clubs and organizations? Yeah, see, this is easy. The other budget that I'm doing a program review tonight on is the ASCW Legislative Affairs budget. This budget receives an S&A allocation of $32,090 on an annual basis. Approximately $25,000 of that is student payroll, which is inclusive of an additional $550 in benefits, and that leaves approximately $6,000 in goods and services. Goods and services out of this particular budget goes to support programming in a variety of areas to help our students become more civic-minded. Things like the Lobby Day or Cats at the Capitol, which is where we take students over and meet with legislators and do programming and understand how their voice can be heard at a state level, which is scheduled, by the way, for February 19th this year. Registration is available online right now if you're a student and you're interested in attending from the student government webpage. You saw the Election Center in November during the election time, and then Civic Week, and also this portion of it goes to help support our student who is our lobbyist and represents the student legislative agenda on behalf of Central Washington University. During the legislative session, we actually have a student lobbyist on your behalf over in Olympia for the entire legislative session. And that is that budget. Any questions about that?
Who's the student lobbyist?
His name is Zach, and he goes by Zachary sometimes, and I don't know his last name off the top of my head. Don't you? You process his payroll, I thought.
Okay. I'm student engagement
Oh.
team now.
Good call, good call. Okay. All right.
So,
Thank you.
thank you, Jeff.
I won't go far.
Now we'll welcome Jeff back to do the adjustment request for ASCWU Club Insurance.
Hi, I'm Jeff Rosenberry. I serve as the Executive Director of Student Involvement, and that's inclusive of overseeing a few departments like, no, I'm just kidding. So I'm here on behalf of ASCWU as it relates to insurance for both our officers and also our clubs, organizations, and events. Something happened. Prices went up. And it caught us off guard, and we were not expecting that to happen. But prices went up on insurance this year and put us in a deficit for this particular line item for the goods and services area of the overall general ASCW Board of Directors budget. And so we want to work to correct that. ASCW pays insurance twice a year, once in October for what's called our D&O policy, or our directors and officers, which covers our directors and officers. Yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. And then we also pay club insurance in December. University Recreation should be noted that they pay for their own sport club insurance. That's separate, so please don't include that in the overall discussion. And in speaking with the Director of Business Services, Tony Burvey, she suggested that we look at a 15% increase on what was paid this year to be safe to estimate for increases in insurance costs and what we anticipate as more student participation in events and club programming and whatnot. So this increase would come to be approximately $1,500 for the D&O policy and $42,000 for clubs and organizations. That's a very hefty policy because, again, it covers all recognized clubs and organizations and the majority of the events that they are putting on. So if you were to take away the $1,500, we paid about $1,275 in FY19 for, correct me if I'm wrong on any of these numbers, $1,275 for the D&O and then $35,700 for the clubs policy. And we would like to come to S&A to ask for an adjustment to our base funding request in the amount of $87,000. This is equivalent to $43,500 in FY20 and $43,500 in FY21, which are the two remaining years in the quadrennium, and would allow us to keep from the Board of Directors general budget falling into deficit on an annual basis. There is not a large enough carryover in order for us to keep that budget sustained with that hit and without the adjustment. So we would be looking at reduction in programming, student staff, and whatnot. Eric.
Did I hear you right? Did something happen with this to make the prices go up, or it was
No,
just
just
general?
Run. Insurance
Oh, okay.
stuff and things is how I understand it.
Cool.
Yep. stuff and things. That's a technical term. Yes.
We also have increased the amount of clubs, which also has an impact. So it was reviewed, and upon that review, they charged us more.
And as we start to hone in on some more consistent processes as it relates to club recognition and the tracking of clubs on an annual basis, that's where we anticipate more clubs being recognized and that impacting the insurance. Other questions on that?
How much is currently in the base funding budget for insurance?
Oh, 35,000? Yeah. Hey, I knew that. All right. Also, I have like 12 budgets that I have to keep in mind. Yes, Joey.
So the 43,500, is that in addition to the 35,000 that's already there?
No, that is inclusive of a 15% increase for both the D&O and the club insurance, and not additional to the 35. We would change the line item to 43.5 for the remaining 2 years of the quadrennium. Please.
And I don't know if I can actually say what I'm going to say legally. But I think my suggestion would be to have it similar as a reimbursement. So he's given us the information that it could be 15%, but at that point, we don't know until we can actually receive the bill, like we've already paid the bill. But we normally have to pay during, well, I guess we did change the date, correct? So it's December.
December
we
for
renew.
clubs, yeah.
So if we were to say we're supportive of this, I think we would just, whatever the difference was from the 35 that was allocated, I think that would be
Yeah.
the appropriate way to make sure that we're funding it.
Correct. Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess I should have been more clear. I'm not requesting an adjustment of $87,000. Thank you. I am requesting an adjustment of approximately $17,000, taking into account the remaining $35,000 that has been forecasted for insurance over the next 2 years. Whew, you got me there, Joey.
That's what I was
Thanks. You got me there, bud. Good. Yeah.
Is that something we need to make a motion on right now?
Well, so I'm looking at Joey. So it's
Was your question, is this something we should, or?
Is this something that we can make a motion on right now?
We can choose to make a motion on it now, or can choose to table it if individuals wanted to go back. Any reason, I mean, it's up to you all what we do, but there would need to be a motion to move that forward.
How would we motion if we don't know the exact dollars?
I mean, what my recommendation would be is that if we're choosing to do it, which I'm not saying we are, we can choose to increase, well, I guess you said on a reimbursement basis.
Okay.
Eric?
I would like to make a motion on a reimbursement basis that we approve the increase of the insurance costs for
17,000 for the next 2 years.
17,000 for the next 2 years of the quadrennium.
I have a question. Do we need to table this so it's on record for like a period of time? So then we vote on it next week?
I mean, we have the ability, because it is up here for, I mean, it was up there within the public notification period, so. We can choose to do that though for that reason, if individuals did want to come for public comment. But there is a motion.
There is a motion on the table.
Second.
Brandon seconds. Is there any discussion? Okay.
Is this something I should abstain on?
Yes.
All right, so seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of this adjustment request? All those opposed? All those abstaining? All right, and the motion passes.
Thank you so much.
All right, so now we have subsection C, the DEC carry forward and vacancy for the director's salary. And we welcome back Jeff Rosenberg.
Just knocking them out tonight. Thank you. I really sincerely appreciate the ability. I know your schedules are packed, so thank you. We had a director's salary line item in the Diversity and Equity Center budget at the start of FY19, and we did not have a director in place at the start of FY19. I've been serving as the interim director since that office transitioned to the area of student involvement in March of 2018. And great news, if you haven't heard already, we have hired a director of our Diversity and Equity Center, Abby Chin from the University of Michigan, will be joining us on February 1st, and we're very excited to have her be part of our team. With that, though, we recognize that there's some salary savings between July and January of this fiscal year, with a total of $58,723, which equals approximately $8,389 per month. In recognizing that the Diversity and Equity Center has gone through some transition and changes and had pulled back on some programming and then moved into a new location, there was just a lot happening. And so with that, the staff has discussed that we probably haven't programmed at the way that we had wanted to this year. And we would like to request that this money be considered carry forward in our budget so that we can maintain it and utilize it for programming, larger scale events, and the continued development of our new multicultural space over in Black Hall.
Are there any questions, Joey?
One is a point of information. Again, just as a reminder, the reason Jeff's coming forward is because any salary vacancy after 6 months, they have to come and request. Otherwise, it goes back in with the intent that they're for the salaries. So it's up to you as the committee on whether or not we allow them to have that. Second one is a question for Jeff.
Yes.
Jeff, can you give, for those who weren't on the committee last year, an update? Because if they were to look at the base funding request, it doesn't include a director. Can you please?
It does not include a director.
Because we had
Correct.
a request
Yes.
from them.
Yes, last year, and again, please understand that the office transitioned to the umbrella of student involvement in March of 2018. So I do know from historical perspective that the office did request a director position, and that I don't know the discussion behind it, but the board, the S&A committee landed on not funding that at that time. And when the office moved to the office or to the area of student involvement, it was clear that we had some organizational challenges. We had 2 assistant directors and there was, or 3, excuse me, thank you, 3 assistant directors and clerical staff at the time. And so the I guess, hierarchy or chain of communication, if you will, was very difficult to comprehend amongst the staff and amongst the students that worked in the center, as well as the students that we were serving. So I made a decision to reorganize that particular department and move to a organizational structure that is in line with the other departments that are within the area of student involvement, and that would be to have a director at the helm of the DEC.
And you came to S&A with that last
I
year.
did, yes,
That's
thank
why I
you.
wanted to make
Yeah,
sure they
yeah,
knew
I did
that.
come to S&A last year and did not request supplemental funding for the director position, but requested that the current base allocation be amended to allow the opportunity to hire a director out of that allocation.
Lacey.
So technically, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, technically this money is part of the base allocation and not a supplemental request that was approved by the committee last year. Lacey.
And just to be clear, there was a position that became vacant, and that was the heart of the restructure, so there was no new position added. So there will still be 3 individuals and an office person.
Correct. Director, 2 assistant directors, and office staff.
Demetria.
So you said about $8,000 per month. Are you expecting it to come close to that number each month based off of those different programs they're planning? Also, a follow-up question, how many people do you have within the DEC that are programming specifically?
Great question. So we have 13 student staff that we currently employ, and they do a variety of programming and event support for us throughout the entire academic year, and also coordinate summer orientation and are present during the summer orientations. What I'm not requesting necessarily is that, what I'm not saying is that we will necessarily forecast $8,000 a month for programming. The DEC has taken some great steps in trying to acquire some amazing speakers and do some amazing programs. As you may know, Sean King will be on campus in late February, and that's an example of what I consider to be a strong use of student funds in an effort to try to get a higher profile speaker or a higher profile programming opportunity for students. So I can't guarantee that it will turn into a monthly allocation of that money and that breakdown, but I can guarantee that it will be utilized based on the student's desire that we serve in the DEC, which is all of you.
Eric.
I would like to make a motion to approve the DEC carry forward of, what was it, 58,723.
So Eric moves, Kane seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of 58,723. All those opposed? Any abstaining? Seeing none, the motion passes.
Great. Sincerely, thank you for your time, everyone. Appreciate it.
Okay, now we'll move into new business subsection D, supplemental funding requests. We'll start with we have 1922, the Scrum Master Training.
Oh, this I understand. I got it.
Thank you all for listening to my presentation. A little nervous. My secretary Kyle was supposed to be here. Unfortunately, the winter flu got him worse than the rest of us, so couldn't be here with us today. But we're talking about Scrum. It's a very technical term in computer science. The definition of Scrum is it's a framework for effective team collaboration on complex products. Basically, it's the most efficient way to get a lot of people to do some work and plan their next 2 weeks and how everything's going to fit together. It's really important to understand why we need this for Central. So computer science, it's a very generic term. Everyone gets people in the computer science major get computer science degrees, but no one gets a job as a computer scientist. You might get a job in machine learning or mobile development. You might get a job. So everything a person sees on the front of a website, that's called front-end development. Everything that you can't see, that's called back-end development. If you do both, that's a full-stack developer. And Central offers classes for all of these subjects, right? Data mining, there's a bunch of stuff I didn't list. But there's something that they don't offer classes for, and that is the product manager. They fill a very vital role in the companies that develop software. Basically, they go to the clients, they say, hey, what do you need the software to do? Then they construct the requirements, it's like a very long document, and then you consistently provide feedback between the software development engineers and the clients, making sure that everything gets done on schedule, everything gets done according to the client's needs. It's basically the business side of being a software developer. I went to LinkedIn and I read an article on what's it like to be a product manager, and like the first subsection was, do I need an MBA? Just to give you an idea of what kind of work they deal with. The answer is maybe. Basically the product manager takes responsibility for the whole thing, and they're responsible from start to finish. It's their head in the noose. So I want to bring Scrum to Central, just because we don't have any opportunities or classes for it right now. It's something that I want our students to have more opportunities to go out and do. It would be really cool if I could go get this Scrum Master Training experience. It would be the top thing on my resume, and I would love to come back and share it with everyone else, be like, hey, this is what we did, this is the things we learned, because we don't have access to that right now. This is our budget. It's changed a lot. I started by figuring out exactly how much a flight costs, and then exactly how much the rental car costs, and same for the hotel and everything. And then I talked with Lacey and her wonderful experience, and she explained to me that these prices would change, and everything I did didn't matter. I came up with just a little over budget. The flight was $886, the lodging was $831, but I'm putting 1,000 because I don't know what random fees I'm gonna have to put up with, or if prices will change. So I have already secured $500 in funding from Career Services. I'm going to ask for $600 from Club Senate and Student Academic Senate. I just learned last week from the PRSSA team about OUR, the Office of Undergraduate Research. So if we are willing to present a source, which we absolutely are. We may be able to get some more money from them. And I put food on this knowing that you weren't gonna give that to me. But I learned that the Office of Undergraduate Research may, and I'm not one of the hardship cases. I, can afford to spend, $10, $15 a day on food, so it's not that hard. But I assume that when I go to this location out of state, I'm not going to have access to the comforts of home. So I assume that I'll be eating out for every meal, and it'll probably double the cost of a daily just food intake. And this is gas is $100. That might be a little high. I just guessed, really. So the registration is $2,000. That's like the really big deal. This is like a really intensive 3-day course, and then at the end there's a big test. You can take a certification, and so it's really cool. I wanted to spend your money wisely, so I happen to be a AAA member, and they'll give us 10% off of the hotel. They'll give us 50% off the car rental. Early registration for the event saves us $600, so thank goodness I'm gotten this request in early. I had some really interesting fundraising attempts. So at first, we took as a department, we took a field trip to DocuSign. It's a company in Seattle that manages authorizations, making sure everything's secure and encrypted. And we had a really great experience there. I was about to ask them for a sponsorship for the club, and I first reached out to my advisor, the department advisor, and she hinted that there might be problems. Apparently the department is asking them for tens of thousands of dollars, so then if I go and ask them for $750, that looks bad, so I was not allowed to do that. But I had a really awesome conversation with Michael Middleton, the new guy with the civic engagement. He said that a lot of clubs don't even know that their club has money. And I was like, well, I don't know if I have money, I just assumed I didn't. So we went and we looked, and I had $350 from 4 years ago. And I then found the guy who was responsible for getting that money into the club account. His name was Trevor Long. We had a great talk. He said that I could reach out to Wizards of the Coast, gave them thousands of dollars. So one thing that's a point of contention that I'm not clear on right now is if we're nonprofit or not, because the American marketing guy said we definitely are, and the accounting said we're probably not. So yeah, no, I didn't think, okay. I'll correct him next time I see him, thanks. So I will definitely be seeking sponsorships from companies that might be interested in doing that. I've talked to the president of the Actuarial Science Club. She said they did t-shirts, but with my conversation with her, it was a few hours of work, and they paid to have them shipped for $15, and they sold them for $20. And she said it was mostly her family that was buying them, and so she made $100. So honestly, I get paid more than that at my job. I'd rather just go to work. And that's how I've been funding the club so far. Before I found the $350, I was just paying for everything out of pocket. And I'm really happy that I found the $350. So that's basically what our fundraising has amounted to. I learned a lot from the PRSSA group. Natalie Melendez was reaching out to all those different agencies in the area. Because this started out as the Scrum Master training. That's what we wanted to do. But this is a list of really cool startup companies in the area. So Fat Merchant is revolutionizing how businesses accept credit card payments. They're switching to a subscription model. It's all very technical, but I called them, and the guy who answered the phone said, this is crazy because I never answer the phone. I've literally never done this. But I was a member of the ACM club when I was in college, so yeah, let's get you here. And so that was really awesome. I've reached out to Hoverfly. I sent them an email. They gave me a contact information of the next person to talk to who can actually get me in the door, and we can have a tour and maybe do interviews, which would be awesome. And then these are Unikey, Flex Receipt, Switchboard, Mercury Cash, and SitePlan are a bunch of amazing companies that I want to go to as well. I've sent the initial email, but I'm still waiting to hear back. So just trying to fit all of them into the day, and it would be awesome to check them all out. Thanks for your time.
Eric?
There's multiple people going.
Yeah, two.
Two?
Yeah.
Does the other person, was he?
Kyle, the
discuss
secretary
need-
with the.
Discuss need for support for food
Oh,
in his conversation? I'm just curious.
yeah. He has. I don't think that he has hardship, but I'd buy him food because we're friends, not because. So.
Edgar?
So I
know that you can network and all that with this event.
Yeah.
But I know that there's some classes being offered, like project management through iPad.
Okay.
Is that, I know that with computer science with the major, that you could like take them as an elective. I don't know if that counts as towards the computer science major, but would that be an option to look into as well? I mean,
Yeah.
Or like.
No, absolutely.
trying to-
I was a friend of mine was doing an interdisciplinary study program or whatever, and we had to like go through and find all the electives that would count, and I didn't see a project management in IT, but now that I know that it exists, that's maybe it just wasn't the quarter
I'm
available.
not saying that you have to take that.
No, yeah, but I want to. That's, yeah.
Demetria.
Just to add on to Edgar's point, yeah, I'm currently in the class and we're working on strums. So,
That's
so within that, besides sharing this information with Source, since there are a lot of other students here learning on the campus, have you, well, I guess I kind of answered my own question, reached out to the ITAM department because they do deal with a lot of this. I'm not sure how funding works necessarily if you're not a part of that specific department. But I know that they deal a lot with this also, so that's just another
Yeah.
option possibly.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't know that. I'm really happy to know that, and I never say no to a place that might give me money. So, that's,
Any further questions? Demetria?
Okay, so you talked about you get a certification at the end,
Yes.
correct? So then is it just a certification for you, or are you then certified to help teach others within the course, or is that separate?
I believe it is just a certification for myself.
Okay.
I'm not certified to teach others, but it would be an amazing thing to share with other people. Based on your conversations about the lacrosse team, I wanted to add that we had a bunch of our ACM club members go to Teach STEM night over at Cleellum Elementary, and it was a blast.
Are there any further questions? Demetria?
So besides the 2 people that are currently going, were there other people that showed interest, or was it just kind of like a starter for going to this?
So I'm specifically looking for people who want to do product management as opposed to work on web development or mobile development or whatever have you. So I was reaching it to people, I was like, hey, is this something you're interested in? And a lot of people were like, oh yeah, I'm interested in that, but then they didn't like follow up. It was clear that they weren't like really passionate about it. So.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll vote on this next week.
Fantastic, thank you.
All right, so now let's go into other business and communications received. I have not received any.
Just a reminder that we need $8,000 for that.
So this is the second call for public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? Seeing none, let's go ahead. And is there a motion for adjournment? Eric moves. Oh, yeah.
I think we're supposed to do that.
Oh, yeah, we did talk to Matt today. Did Matt not follow up with you? You all are on next week.
You're a nurse, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But thanks for hanging out tonight.
Figuring out some tips, you know, the things that we like and don't. Yeah. So it was time well spent.
Would it be possible to present today, considering the fact that the conference is on February 14th?
The challenge would be since it hasn't been published, yeah. I mean, the committee can make the decision to make an exception, but it would be outside of the public notice.
I can definitely talk to your director, because I do know that that is getting close, but that is still about 4 weeks away. I mean, right, what day is it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
monthly today.
And we can talk about some things. It could be that we could vote on the same day, as opposed to motion to do the presentation today. Because I'm assuming there's other costs that need to be reserved. Is there like registration?
Yeah, there's registration, flights, hotel, all that.
Oh, I just had a question. I forgot what day it was. So I just didn't realize that the 14th was a month away because I was like, oh, are they still gonna have time to get it approved by the 4th? But they will.
Yeah. So is there any discussion on that?
Make a movement to approve it and then vote on it next meeting, is that the motion I can
I mean, you all can make that motion, yes. The part I was saying is that would be the outside public notice part, since it's not on the agendas.
So we can't even do that.
You can, it's just an exception to the rules.
Guess I motion to hear Nurse's presentation and then vote on it the same day next
You're
week.
talking about next week?
Yeah.
Oh, I see
Next
what you're
week.
saying. Yes, you can definitely make that motion.
Okay.
I thought you were meaning tonight.
No.
Got it.
Okay,
got it.
Brandon makes a motion, Eric seconds the motion. Is there any discussion on them presenting and voting on the same night? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstaining? And with that, we'll hear the presentation and vote next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
All right, Eric.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
There's Kane seconds on Eric's motion. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstaining? And we adjourn at 6:34.